Hey everybody, this is going to be a quick announcement video about some of the things that have been happening at Patreon in regards to some of their new community guidelines. Now you may know, or maybe not know, that I have some content on Patreon that's a little too spicy for YouTube. It's in a similar vein to some of the old hypnosis recordings that I removed from YouTube back in 2021 when my channel got demonetized and I couldn't have ads anywhere. Basically, some of the files on Patreon are similar to my old HFO and slave hypnosis recordings that I used to have here, but are now available on my website, ultrahypnosis.net. Though I would say the ones on Patreon are quite a bit more intense than those. Anywho's, on April 1st, which I find a hilarious date to start enforcing new rules and regulations, Patreon is going to be enforcing a bunch of new guidelines, especially for their 18 plus creators. And the part that's kind of most important for hypnosis content creators who have adult works is as follows. And I'm going to try to read this in a way that doesn't get me demonetized and completely tanks the visibility of this video. Patreon has zero tolerance when it comes to works, real or animated, that glorify non-consensual acts that include coerced consent, examples being under the influence of drugs, alcohol, hypnosis, or blackmail. That's paraphrasing it a bit so I can say it on YouTube. But basically, how I'm interpreting that rule is that I can't show an actual video of somebody being hypnotized in a way that appears against their will, such as I hypnotize them to be a slave. However, I do very strongly believe that all the roleplay recordings that I make, where the listener self-inserts themselves into the fantasy, would be allowed under the wording of this rule. And I do have some evidence to back this up, because recently I was fortunate enough to be able to get to ask a question directly to Patreon's Trust and Safety team about some of these new rules going into effect. I'm going to read out my question exactly how I wrote it to them. So, to clarify, making content that hypnotizes people, as in the listener who can pause or stop at any time, is consensual. In response to this question, the members of the Trust and Safety team who are present at this Zoom meeting said yes, that would be consensual. Hopefully, their answer will be reflective of the training that the moderation staff at Patreon receives. But for right now, I don't see an immediate threat to the content that I make on Patreon, as long as I stick to making audio roleplay sessions that involve hypnosis to make the experience more enjoyable and intense. I'm sure that all my listeners know, deep down deep, that at any time they can turn off the recording if they don't enjoy part of the experience for any reason at all, and that's always okay. However, I can't be 100% sure that all members of the moderation team will have this same understanding. And in the past, I have had to take away a few recordings here or there to remain within Patreon's guidelines. If you've ever been curious about some of the content that's available on my Patreon, pledging to get access before April 1st could be a good idea. I don't plan on removing any content at this time, but if I was to get a request from Patreon's Trust and Safety team to remove certain pieces of content to bring my page back into compliance, I would unfortunately have to do so in order to maintain my Patreon page. This could make finding some of those removed hypnosis recordings rather difficult, and it might be more expensive for you, the listener, to purchase them a la carte in other places. If you want absolutely every single recording that I or Fiona has ever made, you can get access to them all on our Patreon page for a pledge of $15 a month. Also, you can download and save all of these recordings onto your own device easily, and that's something that I recommend that you do so. Every single post on Patreon has the option to download it. I believe when you're on desktop. I think it might be slightly more tricky to do when you're on your phone, but many of these posts also have Google Drive links, just in case you want to download those files on your phone. Don't worry, I don't mind in the slightest if you download every single file I've ever made, as long as you pay your pledge, that is. And I definitely would recommend it, just in case, before April 1st. I don't want anybody, though, panicking, thinking that my account is at risk of being deleted. I've been on Patreon for over a decade, and in my experience, they've worked very hard to make sure that if there is a disagreement between the creator and Patreon as to what is within community guidelines, they really do give the creator a chance to remove any offending works and get their account reinstated relatively quickly, usually within a week. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a very good deal, but trust me, it's a lot better than what I've had to deal with coming from YouTube. So, I'm not particularly concerned or worried about this right now, though I do want to let you know there is a slight possibility that some pieces of work could be moving elsewhere and finding different homes. Again, if you want to support me and get access to all these exclusive recordings, please feel free to check out my Patreon page. Also, if there are any other hypnosis creators out there that you listen to, especially smaller ones or people who are just starting out, please be sure to consider supporting them on Patreon too, if you have the financial means, especially before April 1st, just in case some things change. I want to say thank you to everybody who supports me, be it here on YouTube or on Patreon. Remember, no matter what, the best place to go to get info and updates about what I'm doing is my personal website, ultrahypnosis.net. Thank you very much for listening to this announcement video. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.